All right, Joey.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SEIU Local 517M's annual meeting 2023. Carmela, we're recording. You can't be yawning. Okay, she made me wake up and laugh this morning because it was cold when I woke up this morning. No, but on another note, I would like to thank you for investing at least 1 to 2 hours of your Saturday today to find out what your union has been up to and what we're going to be doing going forward. I would like to acknowledge any of our staff days here, board members and officers that are on the call. So far, we have, oh, hi, Ashley, that's our staff as well. Our divisional vice president, Carmela Johnson, is here. The divisional vice president, Yolanda Langston, is here. Well, Yolanda Johnson. I'm just reading from the participants. I'm sorry. And Janice Stolze. And we do have some 517 board members here, as well as our regional and state boards and some general members. Thank you all for being here and being on time. But next year, please expect to come in person. Please, please, please. And it will go back to our normal July, not October. So today we're going to hear about a lot of great things. We will learn some new things, and we will have some call to actions for all of you. So our agenda is as follows. Jonathan, our executive director, will talk about the state of the union. Yolanda Johnson and Nick Cimitero. Did I get that right?
Yes. Very close.
Okay. Okay. We'll talk about.
All right, closest all anybody ever gets.
Okay. They will talk about secure retirement. We have a legal services and member benefits presentation, a preemption presentation, which is where I really need that and secure retirement for you to pay attention, and then our closing remarks. Before I turn it over to our executive director, Jonathan Lucky, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our hard work and dedication in the 2022 election. Approximately 90.8% of our membership is registered to vote, and 83.6% of our membership voted in the 2022 election. So clap wherever you are. Give ourselves a round of applause. Thank you all, for those of us who have election day paid off the vote, for actually taking the day to go vote. And now I'll turn it over to Jonathan.
So look at that. I almost started talking while I was on mute. So I was like, let me unmute myself to make sure folks could hear. I just want to reaffirm what Joe was saying, and thank you guys for joining us. I know that we regularly were scheduled for July. We had to postpone. So I appreciate you guys making time for us on October, even though it's a football Saturday. Thankfully, there's no MSU game, so it doesn't affect my Saturday as much. But for the ones who aren't watching some of the games, they would have might air coverage ahead of time. I appreciate you for giving your time for this. I will try and make sure that I'm brief and concise. Somebody once told me when doing public speaking, it's good to be kind of brief and concise. And I said to them, I've been around too many politicians and ministers to do that. But today I am going to try. So as I get forward to talk about the state of our union and set the stage for today's meeting a little bit more, I again just want to acknowledge you guys and say thank you for coming today and joining us. And as Joey said, we are making a lot of strides and a lot of efforts to do things and get things back into order, and where we can, obviously, blend the use of technology, but also meet in person. So that's one of the things, we made the theme of today's meeting looking forward, but also in order to prepare and look forward and be able to be ready for the things of the future, it takes preparation in the present and planning. And that's some of the stuff that we've been working on. So in terms of the state of our union, as many of you know, we represent state workers as well as school and local government employees. And so for decades now, public employees have been under attack. That's nothing new. The tax may change or it may take different names, but we have consistently been there trying to fight and push back against any efforts, whether it's taking away from the professionalism of our workers, subcontracting out or contracting out our work, or the number of things, whether it's been right to work, the reauthorization process, school payroll deduction being taken away, something that's actually through the legislature, in which I will talk about shortly, being reversed. And so will be repealed and should go into place March of 2024. These efforts would not, we would not be able to be successful without the structure and the restructuring and the buy-in that we have from our members and our member leaders. For those who don't know, 517 is a member-led, member-driven organization. All of our executive board members are members. We have units within the different sectors that we represent that are made where the leadership is made up of members. And then outside of that, anybody who's driving the work that we do here at 517 is a member outside of the staff, like myself, Dave and Ashley, who are here, our labor reps, as well as Andrea. And so setting the stage for the agenda for what we've been doing, I first want to look at organizationally what's been done this year. Organizationally, we've had to continue with a lot of the stuff that we've retooled and done. One of which is our organizing programs that we've had. As many of you guys are familiar with, there were some civil service rule changes in 2020, which caused for their stateside to have to deal with reauthorization, which means that we have to reauthorize all of our members every year. This was kind of a further progression of right to work laws that were put in place. And it's a horrible misnomer for what that was given there. It's, it sounds great by title, but we all know that what right to work really means is that we're required to represent bargaining unit members whether they pay or not. And when folks are not paying dues, or when revenue goes down, it hampers our ability to be able to win fights and to really enforce the contracts that you guys and our staff have worked and fought hard to bargain, as well as it negates our ability at times to really represent the members and do grievances and arbitrations. It hinders that, and it puts a damper on those things. Now, we have proceeded to continue to represent our folks to the best of our ability and done a great job on that. So we've been successful, but that is a constraint that's been put on us. And so we have moved forward with our reauthorization campaign. We're well on track. Even though it's not 100%, we're above the 90s, and we're well on track to be in the mid 90s again this year. For our school and local government folks, we're still continuing with our school and local government growth campaign, where member leaders as well as staff have been working to organize folks. We're going to progress on that front as we shift into what I alluded to for our school and local government campaign for school dues deduction. When those laws change in 2024, we are setting the groundwork now while getting boilerplate language together and building a game plan for getting agreements with the different schools that we represent and working with the members to improve our density so we can better fight and enforce these contracts. And we're also going to be working to engage our members. Now, we don't in any way, shape, or form want this to seem like, and it's unfortunate, like with the way things are, this to seem like it's transactional. Our hope, our passion, and what we're trying to do has always been to represent the members first, and make sure that's member driven. And so, we have, I will say, the staff has done a great job, and our member leaders here that are on here and who have done a great job in helping lay down the groundwork and progressing that. The other thing, of course, with that is that our executive board over the summer took action, obviously, because they're looking at the landscape of the way things are. We know that looking forward, as Joy alluded to with this annual meeting, but not just this annual meeting, whether it's the stewards trainings that we normally do, the bargaining unit meetings that happen, any kind of government meetings with any local units. The pandemic forced us, obviously, to go away from doing things in person. Now, it wasn't all bad because we were able to invest in technology and find ways to actually engage and interact with our members in ways that we weren't probably doing before. So it's added another tool to our tool belt. That being said, we don't want to regress to the point or lose those points of contact where we're actually engaging with members, talking to them face to face, where we're doing these trainings face to face so that we can actually have hands-on learning opportunities and hand-on engagement opportunities to help strengthen this union. And so in knowing that, our executive board took the steps to help make sure that we're in a perfect place to do that. We have a dues increase obviously has gone into effect with our state side as well as our school and local government folks. And what that was done was to make sure that one, we could maintain, the staff that we have and our ability to be able to represent folks' grievances, but that we can also make sure that we're able to transition to this next phase as the world is opened back up, and do these things in person. So as Joey had mentioned this morning, we are going to look to do our annual meeting and a number of other functions that we've done in person. And so we're going to be meeting and planning on that so that we can be very ready to tackle that. The other thing that we are working on and have been diligently working on, not just this year, but in previous years and setting the groundwork, and Joey did allude to as well, is there was a lot of work put into winning a triple blue legislature so that we can move a legislative agenda. We know that over the past few years, we've been clawing to just try and get folks to be heard. We have kind of retooled how we actually communicate with folks at the state as well as local communities, whether it's been at a county commission meeting, city council meeting, any of those things. We are trying to engage and advocate on the rights of our members, and we've made some strides this year at the state level and at other local communities. But I want to talk first about the state level strides we've made with this legislature and trying to take advantage of what's been going on. So we set at the beginning of the year some simple priorities. We wanted to get a good start, one, by making headway with the new legislators and the old ones that were returning, to work on priorities and promises that had been made. So the first step was we set out 5 different parameters for where we would engage folks at the beginning of the year, which were around repealing the tax on people's retired pensions, as well as their income tax credits, because we knew that, one, that was a promise that had been made. We wanted to hold accountability to the things and conversations that have been happening. It's one of those things is being able to put money back in folks who are in lower socioeconomic situations, as well as our folks who are retired, would help not just make sure that they could live more productive lives, but it helps impact our economy in a positive way. The other task that we set out for, and we were able to be successful, was the repeal of right to work, and that's on the public sector and the private sector. Now we know in the public sector that because of the Janus decision, that right to work doesn't impact us the same way it does private sectors, but it was important, one, as a statement, but two, as again, an accountability measure to make sure that folks made good on the promises that were made. The third thing that we set out for was to get some standards that were set, as well as a wage pass through for home care workers. We did that in collaboration with our sister local. Now that is still being worked on and has not been finalized yet, but we've made more progress in those areas than we have in a while. Another important factor that we wanted to deal with was, as I talked about previously, the payroll deduction, which we were able to successfully get passed through the legislature, signed by the governor. Now, it wasn't given immediate effect. So what happens is that law will go into effect 90 days after the legislature adjourns, which is why it said approximately March 2024 is when that law should go into effect. Should the legislature adjourn earlier than that, it would go into effect earlier. The fifth prong of what we worked on and we're continuing to work on is preemption. And I know we have Carmela who's going to speak on that a little bit later because she testified earlier this year in front of the Senate committee, as well as we have a couple speakers that are going to give a presentation to kind of go through what preemption could mean for folks. And so that where preemption sits right now is passed out of the Senate Labor Committee, but we're still pushing to get it through the Senate and then get it to the House and try and get that passed. We would not be able to make these strides if it hadn't been for the diligent groundwork that had been done in previous years, but then also with the hard work and dedication of our members. We've had member leaders. I know Janice Cozy, Joey Combs, Rod Jackson, who I don't see on here right now, and a number of other folks have come to lobby days. They've sat down in meetings with legislators, and they've been able to participate in the process, but we also are looking to expand that as well. And so we will have some action items that anybody can get involved in, and they don't all, because I know that time is sparing, they don't all have to be done in person. There's going to be advocacy that can be done through phone calls. We're also going to have some advocacy that can be done through emails, so that we can make it accessible for all of our members. And so I do want to go back one quick second just to say that, oh, look at this. I knew I was like, I'm running out of my time actually and going to the next. So let me let me wrap that up. I will say that moving forward, it's going to take and will take a collaborative effort, and we're making those strides to make sure that everybody's involved, from any rank and file member to our staff, to our board members, that are all put in place so that we can come together and meld in the strategic planning and the moving forward of 517M as an organization. It's going to be imperative that we all have a unified front. That's why, as much as a lot of times I know that there's been a lot of communications that we've done around the reauthorization progress, some of these, but it's really about unifying that. And we're never going to make an assumption that we know what our members want. We do try to listen to everything. Folks will pick up the phone call. We get emails as well, and we try to shift as best we can, but it's going to take all of us being engaged. And that's why it's not lost on me. And I appreciate all of you guys and your time that you spent for this step of being involved in the annual meeting in doing this step. But then moving forward, as we engage folks, as we're asking for folks to be able to participate in either some of the meetings, activity we have going, it's going to take a collaborative and unified effort for us. And so, again, I just want to take a second to say thank you for everything that everybody who was on this call has done in being a part of this union and helping to move and progress this union forward. Now, I don't see any questions. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions folks may have on the progress we're making. But if not, I will turn it over to Yolanda, who's going to introduce Nick to talk about the Coalition for Secure Retirement and some of the work that they've been doing in terms of advocating for pensions and secure retirement options for folks and public employees.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you, Madam President Joey, for the wonderful welcome to our annual conference this year. Well, good morning, SEIU. My name is Yolanda Johnson. I am the Divisional Vice President for Region 2, serving SEIU Local 517M. I also serve as Unit President for the City of Battle Creek employees. Restoring pensions for all public employees in Michigan is essential to guarantee retirement security for our public service members. Pensions provide a reliable source of income in retirement, ensuring that our dedicated members can retire with dignity and a peace of mind. A robust pension system helps attract and retain highly qualified individuals to public service. By offering competitive retirement benefits, Michigan can recruit the best talent and maintain a skilled and an experienced workforce benefiting our entire state. Pensions are a cost-effective way to provide retirement benefits. They offer budgetary predictability as they are funded over time. This stability allows for better fiscal planning and reduces the risk of unexpected financial burdens on the state. Pensions support communities by enabling retirees to remain active and engaged. Retirement public employees often continue to contribute to their communities by volunteering their work and civic involvement, further enriching the fabric of our state in Michigan here. This is why today I am excited and happy to introduce our next speaker, Nick Shimatero. In addition to being a former state representative, prosecuting attorney, city clerk, and director of legislation policy for Michigan ASME Council 25. Nick is also the president of the Coalition for Secured Retirement. He has also served as a member of the Governor's Task Force on Municipal Retirement and the General Board of Michigan State AFL-CIO. Nick is going to speak to us today
Union meeting.
about, I'm sorry?
Union
Oh.
meeting. You're fine.
Oh.
So I'm muted.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought someone was asking a question. I apologize. But anyways, Nick is going to speak to us today about work that the Coalition for Secure Retirement are doing to expand secured retirement options for people here in Michigan. So SEIU, without further ado, please join me as we give the floor to Mr. Nick Cimitero. Welcome.
Thank you, Yolanda. I appreciate that kind introduction. I want to talk a little bit about the Coalition for Secure Retirement first and what it is and who it is. We formed several years back. AFSCME was one of the founding members. I was at the time legislative director for AFSCME, and we filed the paperwork to create the organization. It's made up of several public sector unions, including SEIU. Thank you very much for your long-standing and continued participation. AFSCME, MEA, AFT Michigan, and a number of retiree groups from around the state who have joined us, as well as some individuals. We have individual members as well. As Yolanda mentioned, I'm president. I've been president for a while now, but all of our member organizations are represented among our officers, including Ray Schultz from SEIU MCO, who is our vice president. We meet usually every other month, sometimes more frequently. The pandemic taught us that Zoom meetings were particularly effective. We do meet in person occasionally, but most of the time with Zoom, since we have folks from all over. We used to meet quite a bit at 5:17 a.m. Before the pandemic, but we meet now primarily by Zoom, but we do have in-person programs as well. CSR has been involved in the retirement issue. Well, most of our time, unfortunately, has been on defense. We have faced a very hostile legislature and governor for most of our existence. Thankfully, as Jonathan mentioned, that has changed recently. So most of the work we've been doing has been to head off the worst of the worst. For state employees, the worst came when we closed the defined benefit or pension plan way back in 1997, and during a 2-week period when the Republicans took control of all 3 parts of government. There was a Republican governor, a Republican Senate, and for just a 2-week period of time, there was a Republican House because of some midterm elections, and they took quick advantage of that to shut down our system, our pension system, and go to 401ks or defined contribution systems. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. They attempted to do the same thing for school employees, but thanks to the work of a lot of people who are on this call and a lot of other people, we were, and because we had the facts on our side, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Again, we were able to head off the worst of the worst, ending up with a bad bill, but not closing down the pension system entirely, heading mainly with a hybrid account. And I'm happy to report that we are moving quickly One of the latest reforms, quote unquote, or changes made the defined contribution of the 401k program the default option if you didn't opt into the hybrid plan. The legislation moving in the House now, expected to come out of committee soon, and we think it has a good chance of passage and adoption. That would change that default to the hybrid plan, the pension 401k hybrid plan, rather than the 401 only plan. And that will help bolster the pension system and move more people into having, if not a full pension, at least part of their retirement secured through a pension system. When the municipal pensions, which are primarily, unlike school pensions, which are statutory, and state employee pensions, which are statutory, local pensions, most local pensions are contractual through the collective bargaining system. And there was an effort a few years back during the Snyder administration to severely restrict and gut those pension systems. We worked with our friends in the firefighters union and with a number of police organizations. I sat, as she mentioned, on the governor, that was Governor Snyder's task force on municipal retirement, where there was an effort to gut that system, and we were able to head that off through a broad coalition as at that time. We played a major role in fighting to eliminate or phase out actually the retirement tax, the tax on pensions and 401ks, and that's moving along. It's been enacted into law, and it'll take a little while to fully take effect, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes we would have liked it to have happened quicker, but we're glad that we were able to have that victory now that we have the triple blue. Jonathan referred to it as, most of us talk about it as the trifecta, but triple blue is a good way to refer to it, and a friendly legislature as well as a friendly governor on these issues. So we got that taken care of. Where we go from here has changed. Our internal discussions and our movements have shifted from defense to offense because we have this trifecta, and we don't know how long it'll last. I hope it'll last for a while, but at any rate, we're hoping to move things ahead. And our 2023, 2024 efforts are centering around reopening the Michigan Employment Retirement Security Pension System. There are a lot of very good reasons to do that. Obviously, from the perspective of working people, having security in their pension, having a secure pension in their retirement. You really don't have to explain that too much. I'm not going to bother you with that argument, but there are two other arguments that are critical and important in terms of why this is important. Yolanda talked about the first one, which is to attract and retain qualified people in our workforce. All of us know that we are having a very difficult time maintaining a workforce, and the original argument for going to 401ks was, well, it's portable, you can move around, arguing that was the reason that people wanted that portability. They don't want that portability, we found, but what it has done and what it has created is a situation where we train and then they move off to other more lucrative positions. Traditionally, state employment salaries have not been as high as private sector jobs, but we made up for it with a better pension system and better benefits. That's gone away, and now we have a terrible time getting people to come to work in the public sector, and an even worse time holding them beyond 4 or 5 years. That's not good for the workforce. That's not good for the public sector, and that's certainly not good for the employees. But one of the other things that a lot of people don't realize is how cost effective a pension system is compared to the defined contribution of the 401k system. As I said, Michigan closed its state employee pension system in 1997, so we have well over 20 years of experience under the system. And we were able about 10 years ago to do a study, because we did 2 studies in 2017. One done by the Coalition for Secure Retirement, commissioned by us, and one commissioned by the National Public Pension Coalition, our national partners, that showed 2 very important things. One was the cost of the system. There are 2 parts to a cost to any pension system. The normal cost, that's the annual cost of what additional retirements or pensions you're going to see in the year in which those pensions are earned. Our Constitution protects people who have vested in a pension system from any diminishment of that. But it also requires the state to fund fully that year's additional cost on a discounted basis, recognizing that a great deal of it will be made up or will come from investment income from the dollars you set aside. Unfortunately, for a number of years, the state neglected that responsibility and underfunded the pension system. So we have now what are known as unfunded accrued liabilities, which are basically what we didn't get, what we don't have because we didn't put enough money into the system in the year in which we were constitutionally obligated to put it in. And of course that loses not only that corpus, that pot of money, but the investment income from that pot of money. So the state argued, well, if we go to a defined contribution plan, that won't happen, and it will save us that accrued liability. Just the opposite has happened, because we changed the system. When we totally closed the pension system, no money was coming in, or less money was coming into that system. So our pension system, our state employees retirement system, when the legislature closed it, I was in the legislature at the time, and I voted no. I want that. Clearly understood for that change, but when we closed it, that pension fund was funded at 105%. Today, 20 some years later, because it's closed and because less people are contributing to the system, and because our investment system has to be more conservative because it's an aging system. You don't have any young people coming into the system. You just have more and more people retiring from the system. So you have to be more conservative in your investment strategy. It's now funded at about 66%. So the unfunded liability is the state's obligation, and it will in effect cost the state more. But let's look at the normal cost, the annual cost to the state. The annual cost to the state for the defined contribution plan, as you know, is 4% automatic of payroll, and then up to a 3% additional match. So that's 4 to 7% of payroll. And then because most people, but not all people, do make contributions to the match, and therefore get that additional 3%, it averages out to about 6.5% of payroll. So the state contributes about 6.5% of payroll to the 401ks every year. The cost to the defined pension plan, we discovered, is in the area of about 2.8% of payroll. So the cost to the state is actually about half in a pension system as to what it is in the defined contribution system. Then you want to look at the cost effectiveness of that. So what does that translate in terms of benefits? Well, MPPC, our national partners, did a study at the same time of that because we were 20 years old, and they chose Michigan as one of the states to study particularly. And what they did was they looked at all of the money and all of the 401ks for state employees in the state, and through folks who are much smarter than me, actuaries, et cetera, and accountants, and all the people who work with those numbers more than I can. They translated that. They figured out what those dollars would pay out as a lifetime annuity for the same people. Lifetime annuity being the closest comparable benefit to a pension benefit. And they discovered that it would pay out about 60% of what our pension system paid out. That means that we are paying more than double for a system that pays out benefits that are only slightly more than half the benefits. Think about that for a minute. You're paying twice as much for half as much in return. We did those studies about 10 years ago, and we took it to legislators and to the press and other places, but unfortunately it fell on deaf ears. We're going to go back, we're going to update those figures, and we're going to go back this year to try to reopen the state pension system. And that system is currently being drafted at the Legislative Service Bureau, the legislation to do that. We are expecting we may have to compromise, that we may end up with a hybrid system, we may end up with something in between. But we will do our best to adopt something that reopens the plan. That will actually drive the cost of the pension plan down, again, for two reasons. One, you will have people paying into the system, and we're looking to include in the legislation the ability for people who have never been in the system be able to buy in at actuarial cost into that system, which would bring a large influx of dollars in. Now, the reality is that we've talked with the people at the Office of Retirement Services, and we think that for people who have been in the 401k system, the cost of for a long period of time, 15, 20 years, that cost of buying in would be prohibitive. But for newer employees, particularly those under maybe 5, even up to 10 years, will be able to do that and get a much better return on their investment. one of the arguments that's used for 401ks is that individuals can invest those dollars and make greater return on them than the state can. That's nice to think of that. I know from personal experience that isn't true. I don't trust my investment knowledge at all. My wife actually does a better job of it than I do, but I think that's kind of silly because nobody, if you think about it for a minute, you could, if you are, unless you are spending full time day and night studying the marketplace, you're not going to have the knowledge that we have at the Office of Retirement Services, who for every year except for 2 years during the height of the Great Recession, made better returns on the investment than anyone projected they would. And that's because that's all they do. They study the market, they figure out what we should do to be most profitable. But by opening the system, you then have a younger system. Now, if you're saving for retirement, and I'm sure all of you are, and as you work through this, the reality is that as you get older, you have to be more cautious in your investments, because if you lose money, you don't have time to make it up. When you're younger, you can take more risk, and with more risk comes overall more profit. And when you're investing $100,000, you can't do as much risk as you can when you're and you can't make as much money as you can when you're investing $6 billion of money, which is what our retirement system works with. So we believe that we will decrease our unfunded liability, and we will increase our investment income simply by reopening the plan and allowing new, younger people to come into the system. I saw somebody note that said there would be no pensions for those with 20 years or more. That's not what I meant to say. I don't want to misunderstand. It may be cost prohibitive to buy into the system for those 20 years that you weren't in it.
Okay, thank you.
It would be an individual decision. We are currently seeking a grant from the National Public Pension Coalition to primarily fund public relations on this cost-effective system. We believe that within our ranks, particularly among the 4 unions that are major members, we have a lobbying ability in the legislative process, and we have a lobbyist, Capital Services. Todd Dennis is the lead there, who is very experienced and capable of lobbying. So we think that we can handle internally. But where we don't have the ability beyond our own membership is to get out the word of these things, of the cost effectiveness of the system to the general public. So we're seeking a $50,000 grant from the national group to go out and hire a PR system and try to do things on social media. That's another 20,000. We're actually asking for 70,000, 20,000 for social media, 50,000 to try to get a system put in place that could include additional paid social media, as well as maybe even radio or cable or other things, because the way we convince the legislature and the governor's office to move on this is to get these arguments out to their voters, and we intend to do that. As I said, we will probably do the bulk of our lobbying internally, and that's where all of you come into play, because as you all know, Lobbying isn't just the president of the union, who's very effective at talking to these folks, or our lobbyists talking to these folks, but our members talking this real time. And then talk about how you're a member up organization. AFSCME feels the same. And so we intend to hold a lobbying day again early next year once the bill gets drafted and introduced. Direct contact. We'll do direct contact. We're asking our member unions to do direct contact with their members to use their lobbying resources with the members of the legislature and the governor's office. And of course, letters and phone calls and emails from individual members are always important. So that's our primary goal for the balance of this session of the legislature. And we hope we'll have success, but we'll continue the battle no matter what and try to reopen that pension system and allow people to buy in who are existing folks. They could use their 401k dollars for that purpose if they choose. And get our system back in order and reverse the last 30 years of tax on public sector employees. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your continued participation in the Coalition for Secure Retirement.
All right. Oh,
There are questions in the chat.
Go ahead, Yolanda. You're on mute.
Oh no, I was that was a hand clap, that was a hand clap, not a hand, not a raised hand, but it was a hand clap. I appreciate all of the information that you have given us, Nick. I would like to see if I can get your information to get with you, after the fact, because I have several questions in regards to City of Detroit's pension, reciprocal 88, Act 88. I am now with the City of Battle Creek, so the MERS and this pension system that the City of Detroit had prior to bankruptcy is of course very different. You have legacy and you have the hybrid, in which you had spoke on before we worked with AFSCME in the coalition. Just to get all of those questions out to you, and it's a good conversation to have and education. I would like to get further information so I can reach out to you after the meeting.
Okay, that's fine. The Detroit system is unique. In fact, I had a conversation just a couple of weeks ago with Ed McNeil, whose name you probably recognize.
I worked with him, yes.
Yeah, who's been working on, he's chairman, I guess, of the group that's handling the trust that was created during the bankruptcy, as a result of the bankruptcy.
Right.
And negotiated much better than some of the other groups, police and fire particularly. Our coalition was more successful, but not as successful as we want, obviously. And he's working on some things. So I can always use that as a resource for that. I'm pseudo retired now. I'm no longer working full time as legislative director at AFSCME. But I keep myself busy with a lot of organizations and boards and commissions. And in fact, we'll be serving as parliamentarian. I think it's next week at the AFSCME 25 retirees convention. So Ed and I are in contact with, we've been good friends before. We were good friends before I went to work for AFSCME, and we've stayed after both of us have retired. So we'll continue with that, and I'll use him as a resource if I don't know the answer to your question.
No, and thank you, and Yolanda, I'll connect you guys as well to make sure you have the contact info to do a follow-up. Sorry, Rod, did you have a question as well? I know you came up.
No, I just wanted to thank him for the work he is doing as part of our Civil Service Commission, and for the information that he gave, because we are very interested in restarting the pension. And now you totally explained to me why I made a mistake when I decided to do 401k and didn't stay in the pension system. But so thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. I had the option too, and I didn't do it. I knew I couldn't do the investments, and so I stayed in the legislative retirement system. And I'm one of the smartest things I've ever done was doing that. So we'll see if we can't get you back in, Rod.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for sharing that information and your continued work. We appreciate being able to partner with the coalition, and definitely look forward to engaging with our union, other unions as well, to try and push that stuff next year, especially as we reach the right inflection points for that. So I appreciate your presentation, and thank you. So I'm going to transition this point over to Dave, who's going to introduce our next speakers. But before that, I know we had a comment in the chat from Nadir about informational meetings and union meetings at buildings, and making it convenient for all folks to attend. I mean, that's been a subject. I will say this: that has been a subject of conversation. I know we have some units that are doing it more than others, but I've talked with staff as well as our member leaders are planning to do that. We're going to have more meetings that are going to be able to be done in person as well as using technology. So those will be coming. We're going to make sure, obviously, as the union here in Lansing, that we're pushing that information out and helping out to make sure that the local units have every resource they need to push that information and make sure they get turnout from members and engagement as well. There's also been talk about the possibility of areas, because I know you're at Cadillac Place and things where maybe there's a higher density of other units outside of like what your particular unit is, being able to offer chances for folks to have a cross-unit meeting as well, so that we can engage members at every aspect. So that's important to us, that folks are getting information and they're engaged, and we're working on that in Nadir. So just wanted to address that comment as well. And I will kick it to Dave.
Thanks, Jonathan. So one of my responsibilities here at 517M is the handling of the member benefits. And so one of the things that we've been getting a lot of questions on is dealing with legal services. So we actually have the SEIU member benefits is in conjunction with the NEA member benefits. So we kind of have a joint program. So I have Hope Efris here from NEA member benefits, and she and Dana are going to talk about legal services program.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you for inviting us back. We're very excited to be here. I don't know if any of you remember me, but I've presented some things about the program in the past. So thank you all for wanting us to come back. I wanted to introduce Dana Gibran. She works on our U.S. Legal Services program, which is legal services for a lot of different areas of your life that she will actually go into detail about. But we just wanted to make sure that you knew what was involved with the legal insurance and what's covered and how you can get that, and that everybody is, if you are, as long as you're a member, it's available to everybody. So Dana, I'm going to let you take it from here, but I just want to introduce her. So thank you very much again. Dana, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Hope, for that, for the introduction. And I appreciate all of you allowing me to steal a few minutes of your time this Saturday morning. I'm always thrilled to talk with our client partners and explain more about the legal benefits that are afforded through the SEIU Legal program. There's a lot of misconceptions over, the need for legal insurance. And, people think that, possibly they maybe don't need legal insurance because they're, not have any troubles or run-ins with the law. But it's actually it works very similar to your medical insurance. We contract with over 10,000 attorneys across the nation and on a plethora of personal legal matters, and they provide the services to you once you're enrolled, and we pay for the attorney's fees for all covered matters. And so referring back to if you need a legal plan or not, it's not just in time, in bad times. It is a resource, a tool, coverage and benefits that are going to help you plan for your future. Say you want to buy or sell a home, or you are thinking about adopting a child, or you want to get your estate planning. Maybe you just recently added a child to your, had a baby and added a child to your family unit, and you wanted to, adapt and adjust your estate plans, wills, power of attorneys, and so forth. The plan is been very, very positively received for SEIU locals. I work with several of the locals, 721 in California. It is one of the fastest growing voluntary benefits that they've ever offered. I've been thrilled to partner with member benefits and work closely with Hope to ensure that members are serviced with the highest level. And, we constantly work on how to market it and communicate more out to the member base and to the specific locals, which is why I'm thrilled that I was able to have the opportunity today to speak with you. I'll just jump right in because I know that, everyone wants to probably get on with their day. But as you see here on the screen, the Family Defender is a full indemnity insurance plan. We are regulated and licensed with DOI for each state. The Family Defender allows and affords coverage to the family unit. So that is the participating employee, the employee spouse or domestic partner, as well as eligible dependent children up to age 26. The plan is $16.90 a month. And when you look at the annual premium for this service, it is less than 1 hour of an attorney's fees. Attorney fees on an hourly rate anywhere from $350 upward. Now we're seeing $600 and $650. So for your annual premium is basically less than 1 hour of an attorney's time. The plan is very comprehensive.
I'm sorry, Dana.
Comprehensive.
Dana,
Yes.
excuse me. Are you supposed to be showing your screen because we don't see the presentation?
Yeah,
Did you
I
want to?
just want to. I hit share. Let's see. Are you able to see it now?
No. Do you want me to?
See what's happening.
No. Here we go.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
Sorry.
So here on the screen, you'll see the Family Defender and the areas of law that are covered by it. We have coverage for civil litigation. So that's plaintiff and defendant. So if you say you have a dispute with your homeowners association or a neighbor, or, possibly a contractor that you hired, it can be utilized as a plaintiff or defendant, meaning you can file a suit or if you are being sued. So there's a defense coverage for both. There is administrative hearing coverage. You have trial coverage up to $15,000. Family law is if not the number one benefit that is most highly utilized. We cover uncontested divorce in full. Contested divorce is covered up to 15 hours per year. Those hours are renewed on an annual basis. Child support and child custody, and also post-degree judgments and modifications. Obviously, if somebody has filed to dissolve their marriage and, there have been parameters and rulings on financial child support and so forth. And think about if you've someone lost their job and the child support was based on their, their current salary. And if something changed, then you can go back. That's where the post-degree judgments and modifications come in very handy. We also cover domestic adoption and also post and prenup agreements, immigration matters. This has been a very highly utilized area in the last several years. We offer it on visa extension, naturalization, deportation, or removal on a valid visa. We cannot assist in getting a visa, but if there is a valid current visa, we are able to provide immigration services. Anything outside of that scope will be covered at a 33 1/3% discounted rate. We also cover traffic violations. So this is for moving traffic violations that carry points. You know, I have 3 young adult children, and sometimes they have a heavy foot. And so if there's traffic violations or anything like that, speeding tickets, there can be an attorney to help with the defense of that. We also cover first offense DUI and also revocation and suspension. There's an area of consumer protection. So that's, say you purchase some appliances for your home, they were not working correctly. You know, you're trying to work with the manufacturer or the brick and mortar retail, you know, store that you purchase from, and you're having issues. An attorney can be very helpful and resourceful to help you navigate that. There is also a level of criminal law that is covered. Misdemeanor and juvenile law, is juvenile defense, I apologize, is also included. We also cover real estate transactions. So this is not real estate transactions for buying or selling a home, and also a secondary residence. If you need an attorney to assist you in closing documents or deeds or anything like that, they will, you know, represent you. They will come to the closing with the other attorneys and work with you through the closing. Document preparation and review. This is, you know, a very vast, because there are no limitations on the amount of documents, the amount of pages. If you have contracts that you need an attorney to review to make sure that you're understanding all of the language that may be contained in the document, you can go to the attorney. We'll assign you to an attorney. You can go have your documents reviewed, make sure that you understand what you're signing and that you're, you know, in a fair contractual situation. Estate planning. Between marital and estate planning, those are the top 2 utilized claims that we have. Everyone needs to have a will in place. Everyone should have a power of attorney in place. It's not based on some people say, well, I don't have a lot of assets. It's not about your assets. It's about preparing your family for the future. It is also assisting in health surrogacy agreements. I know myself, I'm personally become a caregiver for my mother, and it's a circle of life that we all will face. And we have elder law coverage that helps navigate and make sure that all the documents are prepared and in place. And, you know, things are known and the wishes of the one that you are caring for. There's also financial coverage. We have foreclosure and bankruptcy, IRS audit protection. So you can meet with an attorney. They can review your tax, even from previous years, to make sure that everything has been filed correctly, or if there's any type of disputes or so forth, they would be able to help you navigate that as well. All of the services that I'm explaining to you, these services are paid in full. So basically, you call in with a legal matter, we will assign you to an attorney. The attorney you'll have consultation, and then the attorney will, you know, advise as to what the next steps are, what is needed. And like I said, outside of that, if they're, like, for instance, an immigration, or say you've expelled all of your hours for family law in the 1 year, then what we also provide is a 33% discount off of the attorney's fees. So the coverage is vast, it is valuable, and it's just very beneficial. Also included in the legal plan is the, I'm not sure why my screen is not moving. There you go. We also have included a component of identity restoration. Unfortunately, it is the fastest growing crime in our country, and costs, some people thousands upon thousands of dollars, and can be, a real headache and an upsetting, issue that people face when they're victimized. So we've added an additional identity restoration. It's a fully managed restoration program. So if there has been a breach that's detected, we will get you in contact with fraud examiners who will help you restore. They will do the restoring, but you will have one assigned to your case. They will walk you through it. They will fill out and prepare any type of documents, forms. They'll contact the credit bureaus, and basically manage every step of the way to returning your identity prior to the breach. There is also a plethora of online resources. We have a mobile app that's available to members who enroll. Our online digital library has been very, very useful, and it's a great tool. You can go onto it. We have over 10,000 documents that are state specific. Say you're, going to sell a car and you need a bill of sale, or maybe you have a property and you want to rent it, so you want to have agreements in place. I'm just saying just a few of the examples that are available. The documents can be downloaded and they're fillable. They can also be saved. The legal library can be utilized by your family members. Say you have a child or a family member that needs a document, they have access to this as well. It also, the member portal that is available once you're enrolled, has additional content. That's where your policy documents can be found. We have blog posts, different kind of content that we're constantly changing, just to ensure that our members are constantly informed and, educated on different areas of law. That's pretty much what our legal plan provides. Like I said, it's been one of the fastest growing of voluntary offerings that SEIU has offered. We're pleased to be working with SEIU. And if I can open this up for questions, if anyone would like to ask me any questions. If you don't have questions today, you can send them later to Hope or to Dave. I'm always happy to assist. If you would like, additional information, videos, content, marketing pieces, anything, I'm happy to oblige and provide anything that I can help you communicate to your member base.
Thanks, Dana. We actually do have a couple things. First off, can you speak to about workers' comp help?
Well, we do have attorneys that can assist with workers' compensation matters. There is, I will say this, and a hard exclusion in our plan is that the plan cannot be utilized, for any type of suits that could go against SEIU or the local, past and present employers. So workers' compensation would be a referral to an attorney, and that would help navigate the different parameters that that are in the nature of the legal matter.
Okay, and then request is the information in your PowerPoint is available on the web page, correct?
Yes, we are on the SEIU member benefits webpage. That is where the members would go to. They have to be registered, and then they can enroll online.
Yeah, but
through
there
the
is an
portal.
attachment. We have a hyperlink to an attachment that has this information that you're looking at, what is covered and things like that, that I can send to you, Dave, but it is also on the site too.
Yes, and if you are ever in the need and you want to have flyers with this type of information as well, I'm happy to provide you hard copies. We do have some of the locals that have chosen to keep some of the flyers. in their office. Sometimes members may come to the local office or whatnot. And so I'm able to provide things like that if you're interested in that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? I can't see the chat box with my screen at the moment. So are there any other questions that have come through?
Nope. Nope, there aren't.
Okay.
So, all right. Thank you. We will move
Oh,
it.
you're so.
What?
I said you're so welcome. Thank you all for allowing me again to kind of come into your meeting on this Saturday. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, thank you as well.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Carmela.
Okay.
For our next portion.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our meeting. My name is Carmela Johnson. I'm the DVP for Region 3 here with SEIU 517M. I live in Flint, Michigan. I am the president of our paraprofessional union here at in Flint for Flint Community Schools, and I have been employed for 30 years. So that retirement piece was very, very interesting to me. On June 21st of this year, I testified in front of the State Labor Committee in support of Senate Bill 171, Senate Bill 171 will repeal preemption laws that went into place in 2015. What are preemption laws? That's a good question. Preemption laws are laws that take away local control of our local officials, so they can't make any decisions. Repealing preemption laws in Michigan is crucial because it allows us to restore decision-making power to the local communities. Preemption laws often prevent local communities, such as Flint, from enacting policies and regulations that cater to their specific circumstances. Repealing these laws enables cities and municipalities to develop tailored solutions that address their individual concerns, whether it's public health, environmental protection, or economic development. By repealing preemption laws, we empower local leaders to take action swiftly and effectively in response to evolving community priorities, ensuring that government remains accountable, and accountable to the people. It would give local leaders the power to do things like raise wages and standards. I have seen the harm year after year that has been done with these decisions are taken out of the hands of people in the community. It was devastating in our city of Flint with the emergency manager law that took away power from our community and leaders and led to a crisis, one of the biggest water crises in the history of our country. The effects led to poisoning of many, many children. It also led to some deaths. Excuse me. For 30 years, I've worked in the school district supporting our children, and I've seen the effects. By passing this law, we can start to undo the abusive preemption laws that are holding our local progress. Excuse me. It's time to return power to our communities and the local leaders we elect so that we can take steps to support workers and the good jobs that we need to thrive. Today, we have two experts who are going to speak with you about these impacts, repealing these laws. I'm proud to introduce our two experts. One is Jennifer Epps Addison, JD, who is the Home Rule Campaign Lead for Local Solution Support Center. She has spent the last 25 years leading justice-centered campaigns and organizations. Her work is rooted in community organizations, cultivating winning strategies, and advancing systems change campaigns to transform our world and create the conditions where we all have the freedom to thrive. She is also the founder and chief Imagineer At Synergy Power Consulting, which is a coach collaborative consulting firm supporting the next generation of social change leaders. Her work has been featured on hundreds of earned media stories across dozens of platforms. Prior to founding Synergy Power Consulting, Jennifer served as the president and co-executive director of the Center for Popular Democracy and CPA Action, a $30+ million national network of grassroots power building organizations with more than 100 staff working across 120 cities and 34 states across our country. She also sits on the board of directors at the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center, United for Respect, Be a Hero Fund, Power, Step Up Louisiana, The Forge, an online journal dedicated to organizing strategy and practice, and the Action Lab, a movement retreat and leadership development center. When she is not working to transform the world, Jennifer writes science fiction and does her best to raise her 13. I thought this said 13 kids, but I read it over and I'm glad because I almost had to take my glasses off from like 13 kids. But no, she has a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. And she wants to be, and she's mentally liberated. And we also have Nestor Davidson. He has joined Fordham in 2011. He was named the Albert Walsh Professor of Real Estate, Land Use, and Property Law in 2017. Professor Davidson has published widely in urban law, poverty, and affordable housing law and policy. Professor Davidson founded and serves as the faculty director of the Law School's Urban Law Center and previously served as Fordham's Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. Professor Davidson practiced with the firm of Lathan and Watkins, focusing on commercial real estate and affordable housing, and served as special counsel and principal deputy general counsel at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. Jennifer and Nestor Davidson, thank you for joining us. That was a lot.
Well, thank you so much. Amazing to be here with all of you. I'm going to just set the stage for a few minutes and then hand the microphone, metaphorically speaking, to the amazing Jennifer Epps Addison to talk about Michigan and the work we've been doing and how we want to partner with all of you. So just a little bit about myself, and again, thank you, Carmela. As Carmela mentioned, I'm a law professor, so I'm the pointy-headed academic in the crowd, and I have been working for many, many years on questions of the abuse of state preemption and the basic structure of the relationship between local governments, between cities and counties and communities at the local level and the states. And just to kind of set the stage for the conversation we're having today, we have always had some version of preemption in the relationship between cities and states. This goes back to the founding. States have always had a lot of authority to set the nature of what local governments can do, but it's mostly been a pretty technical, not very confrontational part of the law. It's usually about setting neutral rules, about setting floors and baselines at the state level, and giving the cities the power to act in that kind of a framework. But I'd say, although it didn't really begin 10 years ago, I would say over the last decade, and really following the gerrymandering we saw after the 2010 state elections all over the country, and the advance that Republicans made in a number of states, we've really seen a new era of the abuse of state preemption. We've seen this in the Midwest, not just in Michigan, but in Ohio, Wisconsin, Indiana, other states. We've seen it all over the South. We do work in Georgia and Florida and Texas. We've seen it in the Southwest. Arizona is ground zero for some of this. And just to paint that national picture, over the last 10 years, we've seen preemption that can be remarkably sweeping, just taking large areas of policy away from local governments. I hate to say that Michigan was really the state that set the model for that with the Death Star bill back, in the mid 20-teens. But you've seen similar things in other states, but it can also be really targeted. You have states that are picking on specific policy areas or specific cities when cities have the temerity to assert the priorities of their community. Increasingly, as we as a country have become more polarized and as our politics have become more polarized, we've seen trends across the country of preemption, not just taking away distinct areas of local policy, but also becoming more punitive. So states are now opening up local governments to all kinds of new liability. You can be sued by business groups who think that local policies are unreasonable, and the state makes it very easy to interfere that way. In some states like Arizona, if you disagree with the state, they can take away your budget revenue. They can essentially cripple local governments. And in some states like Florida, if you disagree, in Florida, there's a statute that says if you disagree with the state on gun safety, you can be removed from local office. If you're a city council member, you can be fined individually. You can't use public money to indemnify yourself or even defend yourself. And we've seen examples like that growing across the country. And over the last couple of years, this trend has gotten even more pronounced. We're now starting to see states really try to eliminate the policy preferences, the power of local governments almost entirely. So Texas right now has passed a sweeping bill that essentially tries to get rid of home rule, tries to get rid of the constitutional protection for local governments. Houston filed suit. They're actually winning in that litigation right now. It's working its way up through the courts of appeals in Texas. But you see this in states removing local prosecutors who don't believe in mass incarceration. You see this in Jackson, Mississippi, where the state has essentially created a city within a city, taken frankly all the white neighborhoods in a majority Black city and created their own criminal justice system and their own police force, displacing the mayor and the local process there. And so this is a trend that has been broad. It's accelerating. The national picture is unfortunately not an optimistic one, even if there are some victories on individual issues from time to time. And sadly, of course, Michigan, as you know better than Jen and I do, has been very much at the center of all of these fights. So not just the DESAR and its sweeping preemption on labor standards and project labor agreements and minimum wage and fair scheduling and more, but firearm preemption, as with so many states, rent regulation, zoning, plastic, single-use plastics, tobacco sales, whether you can have a local government that thinks that you shouldn't have smoking in restaurants. I could go on and on and on. There's sweeping preemption across Michigan. And of course, as Carmela so powerfully shared, Michigan has probably the most intrusive emergency management statute in the country, and the tragedy in Flint is a really powerful example of where that can go so tragically wrong. So I think you've all been in the trenches on these fights for years. It's encouraging to see preemption repeal begin in Michigan, and that's exciting. And I want to hand it off to Jen now, who I think, as she said, has a PowerPoint slide or some slides to share. But I think there are signs for optimism, and I look forward to your questions and our conversation as we proceed.
To get myself off mute there. Thank you so much, Nestor, for setting the stage for us. And I also just want to thank Carmela for that incredibly powerful testimony as to why an issue that on face value might seem hard to really put your hands on is so critical to all of the things we hold dear and all of the aspirations that we have for our communities and our people. I did warn you all, and I don't know who's all in a position to use the chat, but I would love to just, before I hone in on home rule, ask you all a real question. If you're able to indulge me for a second and just close your eyes, just try to clear your mind for a second and imagine what a thriving community looks like. What does it mean for you and your family and your neighbors and the folks down the road and the folks in the next town over and everybody across your state from corner to corner? What does it mean for them to truly thrive? Can you put in the chat for me just something that you saw? It doesn't have to be the whole picture, but what did thriving look like to you? Maybe it was laughter, children playing, but what did thriving look like to you? Is anybody in a position to put that in the chat for me? Yes, thank you, Roderick, to get along. David, to raise your family as you see fit. Who else? Who else can give me a little bit? We get like 2 or 3 more. Children being able to learn without having to be poisoned. Thank you, Carmela. So yes, Janice, people having their own gardens and farms. Absolutely. So here's the thing, whatever you imagined, right? Whatever you imagine when I asked you what a thriving community looks like, I guarantee you it looks pretty different, right? It's not exactly the same as what Michigan looks like today. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that abusive preemption takes power away from our people to get the things that we need and to make decisions that are best situated for our communities. And so the consequences of that are many of the things you've already heard. You know, a lack of innovation in policies, communities that are facing big struggles and big problems, not being able to be innovative and trying to solve them, right? A lack of equity. And democracy and community. A lot of times abusive preemption undermines the democratic power of communities, particularly communities of color. And if abusive preemption is the problem, then folks, home rule reform is a critical part of that solution. What does that mean? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability for local units of government to have balance in their relationship and power with the state and to be able to try and have flexibility, right, to solve and meet the needs of their communities, right? Those who are closest to us, who have to go to our schools and go to our neighborhood coffee shop and shop in the same, shopping center, those folks are going to have the best position to see what our self-interests are. And so essentially what it does is it balances the relationship. It ensures that state and local governments get to work effectively together. But the reality is that many states have even though many states have limited forms of home rule, it hasn't fundamentally been updated in nearly 70 years. So think about that. Think about what this country looked like. Think about what our cities look like, our communities look like 70 years ago, right? So the point here is that it is, as we take on abusive preemption fights, right, that we need to be thinking 70 years into the future, the same way other folks were. As we take on these fights, right, we can do them one by one, we can do them piecemeal, and where we have power to retrench, to retract abusive preemption, we absolutely should move on that power. And you're all already seeing that with minimum wage and a whole host of other important labor standards that are currently preempted. But what happens, folks, if next year, or say after the end of this session, right, if the balance of power shifts, if the pendulum shifts, right? We know that elections are fickle, they're cyclical. And while you are enjoying an incredible and hard-fought governing moment right now, that may or may not always be the case. But we believe that what should always be the case is that cities, communities should have the ability to make decisions that make the neighborhoods they live in safer, that make them stronger and healthier places to live, regardless of who's in power at the state. So when you reform home rule, right, when you say there has to be compelling state interest to utilize the tool of preemption, which is simply a tool, it's neither good nor bad, it's how you wield the tool, right, that either makes it useful to our communities because it sets floors and standards that all of us can rely upon, or harmful to our communities because it refuses to allow us to solve the unique problems that we have. And so, you know, we are really excited to think about how we can win, not just on one preempted issue, piecemeal, you know, issue by issue, but over the long term, over the next year, over the next 2 years, how can we actually build out campaigns to reform home rule so that you don't have to have issue by issue fights, and instead each of you has, you know, a set of protections that you can rely on as a community. So I will just say that, you know, we are supporting folks in Michigan through research, convening, communications, and messaging. We'll be having another community meeting with folks like We the People Michigan and Detroit Action and Michigan Voices and others in November, and certainly invite, you know, y'all to join us. And, you know, we're really excited to support the union, especially in any ways that you all need as you take on these critical fights, because as you heard Carmela say, you all have the power and the vision to know what your communities need. Now we have to create the pathway so that you can win and you can do the things that you already know are necessary for your communities to thrive. So I'll pause there and just ask if there are any questions, or pass it back to, I don't know if I pass it back to Carmela.
Oh, there don't seem to be any questions. So if you're done, then we appreciate it. I guess we're gonna switch it over to Jonathan right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nestor, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us and talking to folks about preemption. We really appreciate it. So after this meeting, what we are going to do is send out a follow-up to the folks that attended. And so we wanted to make sure there was a little more education that was given on kind of preemption there, but there is, as Joy had prefaced at the beginning of this meeting, a call to action. And so one of the things that's happening is that, as we mentioned, the preemption bills that are in the Senate right now are moving, but they're moving at a slow pace. And so there's an expectation that there would be a stall in the House. And so we're joining with not just our sister locals, but other locals, and they're doing a preemption canvas. But we are, because all our folks can't go knock doors in Detroit, there's also information for making phone calls to Speaker Joe Tate. He's the speaker for the Michigan legislature and the House. And as the leader, we're calling on him to make sure that and ensure that when these preemption repeal bills enter the House, that they not only get a committee hearing, but that the legislature take them up and pass them, so those bills can then be put on the governor's desk for her to sign. And so we have information for those events, and we're asking folks who can just to make that phone call in, knowing that everybody can't participate in the canvas, but to keep folks aware of that event. So that information will get emailed to everybody afterwards. So that is kind of the preemption call to action. I saw that there was a comment from Michelle about the pet insurance, and I just want to speak to that for a quick second. We had reaffiliated with the AFL-CIO, and so they have a Member Plus as well benefit, and we wanted to get somebody from there. We just couldn't for this meeting because through that Member Plus benefit, there is or Union Plus, sorry. They do have a pet insurance that's available for folks and the discount. So because we couldn't get them there, we are reaching out to get that information so we can try and share that for folks. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And then I'll say this as well, because I know that in the opening, we acknowledged some of our executive officers that were here did not catch Michelle Kushner and Rod Jackson, who were on the call as well. So just wanted to acknowledge them along with the rest of you. I know we're a little over time, but I think it was well worth it, and there's a lot of great information. So what I wanted to say just in closing out is, a lot of the lessons that we've learned, a lot of the things that we're putting in place, even though some of them have been in reaction to some of the challenges that we face, whether it was the fact that we've had to reorganize and try and redo how we do member engagement with reauthorization. It's going to help us to push on these fights, whether it's preemption, whether it's pushing forth like pension for all legislation. We're going to be able to take these lessons learned and help have a stronger campaigns as we continue these fights moving forward. In terms of the information and like kind of getting beaten down, there's oftentimes, especially when we've been on defense for so long, focus on the negative, and we've seen again the outsourcing of jobs, using private contractors is taking that work. But I did want to end by actually highlighting a success that's been in the making for a while, and that in particular I know folks in Kalamazoo and Andy Johnson have been working on for a long time, which is that we had some classifications of workers over in Kalamazoo schools that had been privatized, and through the work and efforts of the union, we've been able to bring that work back over in. So it's a great victory in trying to turn back that decimation of our union and those acts, and we want to hopefully be able to repeat that in other areas. And so they have an event going forward next weekend where there's going to be a trunk or treat in Kalamazoo, where we're looking to organize and sign up those new workers and have them joining into the union, as well as put on an event where we can be face forward and be successful in like bringing the community together as well as other members. That's something we want to look to expand on as we move forward. And again, I thank you guys for your time, but I just wanted to end on that positive note, because I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight that good work and some of the other work that's taking place. I'm sorry, I'm getting a text message, and I wanted to make sure that I was didn't miss anything from that. So appreciate you guys. If there are any questions or any kind of follow-up, if you guys want, if I don't know if there were other questions folks didn't have, I'll open the floor before we were dismissing if anybody had anything. But if not, I'll say enjoy your Saturday. Appreciate your time. And if you think of anything where you might have had a question before, please feel free to email us or give a phone call, and we'll address any kind of questions and concerns folks may have had. So, oh, sorry, look at that. I apologize. Janice said so she appreciated her HSS folks on the call, and that she's looking forward to the ratification meetings they have next week. So, yeah. Outside of it, I apologize. I had locked my phone trying to get the text. Joey sent me a quick reminder, so I do apologize. One other thing, obviously, is that the state units have TA'd an agreement. We'll be sending out information. Each unit's going to be having ratification meetings coming up, so we'll be getting information out to members. So that is another point of emphasis. This tentative agreement, should it be ratified, would make this contract that has been this 3-year contract and the economics for it one of the richest for state employees since the mid 90s, the mid 90s, I should say, early 90s to late 80s. And so it's an example not just of the hard work that the bargaining unit members and the folks that have put in there to try and advocate for the members, but just our commitment to enriching and enriching our membership. And so they're going to be meetings set up. We'll be getting the information for folks for their individual units, so they can have all the ratification information and executive summaries of the agreement that's there. And so please look out for that for folks from state units, for that information, for the communications and for the meetings. And then also obviously for folks to be able to vote on ratifying those TAs. So again, there we go. Thank you guys. Have a great Saturday. And then let's see. I will we'll get you. So I see there is one more question, David. We will we'll get that up on YouTube and we'll let you guys know. I don't know how long it's going to take Dave to get there up, Dave Corey to get that together, but we will, once it's up and running, allow folks to know when that recording is available for the meeting. So,